Hey folks, Valentin the Mad here, and today we'll be looking at the destruction in Company of Heroes 3. A new COH was a thing I've been really hoping for. Back when the first one came out, in terms of destruction, it was really ahead of its time. Very responsive in every aspect of it, you could completely transform locations, and detail-wise, it was mind-blowing, especially for a 2006 game. So, I was really hoping to see a new installment in the series and see where they can take destruction with the current capabilities. Now that the third game is out, let's see what's there. As for buildings, you have cutout variations mapped on different parts of the building. You'll see paint peeled off around those. When taking enough damage, some buildings will collapse into a half-racked variation. Others will be fully brought down. In testing, I haven't seen the half-racked variation either be fully collapsed or take any further damage. But we have far more significant issues. The most glaring one is that half-racked variation. It is entirely pre-made and it seems like you have only one per building. It means that every single wall you see remaining here will not respond in combat when hit, and as you can see, there's quite a lot left. But even when the half-racked variation isn't a factor, you don't have all of the building or even just all of the exterior walls mapped out for damage. You have holes in specific locations, so if you happen to see hit directly on one of those, sweet, looks quite detailed. However, what you'll be seeing much more often is a hit at a certain spot followed by damage somewhere else. Here's an example. That's the point of impact, and that's where we have the visible damage. Here's another one. This one's really obscene. Here's a shell causing damage in 7 different locations, either blowing open a new hole or expanding a current one. The red arrow is the point of impact, and as you can see, that place is entirely undamaged. Now maybe in some very rare circumstance, with the wall being weakened, with the shell fragmenting in some weird way perhaps, but stuff like this happen way too often, and I can pretty much assure you, what we have here is not some form of very complex physics calculations, but rather just very poor wall damage. What you get is building damage that resembles a generic overlay more than anything else, and not a very good looking overlay. Enhanced building and structure damage was a thing I've been really hoping for, but I really can't call this an enhancement. Feels like a massive downgrade with a few flashy features. As for terrain damage, that is kind of a mixed bag. So, you will have impacts leave a response on the ground. Different impacts will leave different responses, and we do have some pretty cool things here. Now for AT shells, you no longer get this small crater decal, but rather this, which is kind of realistic. To penetrate armor, you often wouldn't use explosives, but rather a solid armor-piercing shot, so for a shell like that, the dug-in response is very appropriate. For wrecked armor, you get a sort of a mechanical debris decal. Nothing fancy, but it is pretty cool. Most importantly, as far as I saw, all of the decals will stay. And I mean really, all of them. The dug-in shells, mortar shells, canister shells. So, in that regard, there will very much be a sense of an aftermath and a transformation of the environment. Now, the issue would be the actual deformation. That still can happen only with the very heavy explosives, and the deformation itself is pretty mild. You will need lots of repeated heavy bombing in the same area for anything remotely significant, which in regular gameplay is not gonna be a very common occurrence. As for the vegetation, all of it that I saw will respond, so that is also gonna be playing a role in that transformation. The one real issue I have here is that, for some reason, the large trees can't be reduced to a stump. It's an issue I saw in several games, and I'm not sure what's up with that. You also have many responsive props and objects scattered around the map. The cool thing about those is that some of them will leave a debris decal, and, like the terrain impacts, those also seem to be permanent. There is kind of an issue here though. Nothing significant and kind of nitpicky, but if you are familiar with the first game, you can't miss it. So, things like staircases, a wall like this, won't show any damage when hit. It's far from being the largest issue here, but in the first game, nearly every object had some form of a damaged variation, and that was very much part of the wow factor. Lastly, we have the vehicle damage. Much like in the first game, where you hit matters, whether it's the front armor, side or back. You do have the quick, out of control state, and vehicles seem to remain permanently until they are ran over by other armor or they get exploded. New additions are a crew shock state after a hit, I have seen shells ricochet, which I don't recall in the first game, and I have seen some visual damage enhancements, like an overlay of shell impacts around the area where it was hit. It is a generic overlay, but it will appear around the area of impact, rather than all over the tank. I have seen partial burning after a napalm attack, and when a vehicle explodes, there will be a bunch of physical debris coming from it. From what I saw, you always have all the parts fall off and it won't be related to where the fatal hit was. Also, like any physical debris, it won't stay for very long, but it is still pretty cool. However, things like engine damage seem to be less common now, and I haven't seen the main gun get disabled. In conclusion, to me it feels like a mixed bag. On one hand, you will very much see the environments get transformed. Most will respond, and the permanent terrain impacts also play a huge role for the aftermath feel. However, the building damage is just bad, and having played the first game quite a lot, I honestly expected a lot more from a new title in the series. So, can you transform the environments and turn them into a mess? Objectively, you can. Do I personally feel I can recommend this? All things considered, not really. That is it for today. Do let me know how you feel in the comment section, and if you enjoyed the video, subscribe and share it around. And do consider supporting on Patreon. For $1 a month, you get these videos a week early, you get the interviews a week early, and you do very much help out. So big thank you to all the supporters, and consider joining as well. Also, if you like the music you hear in the intro, outro, and in the background, the YouTube and Spotify playlists are in the description. Until next time!